I hadn't planned to do a video about the G.I. Joe retro wave. I thought that the video from Analog Toys summed it up very nicely, and I had read a number of comments from other content creators in the space sort of lamenting the same thing. They all had the same sentiments that I agreed with. My overall perception of this line is that it is a useless experience. It is a weak layup from Hasbro, and it shows a complete lack of effort on their part. It reminds me of Harrison Ford's famous quote from behind the scenes on Raiders of the Lost Ark when he was filming the truck chase, and the documentary filmmaker said from behind the camera, have you ever been dragged behind a truck, Harrison? And he said, drag behind a truck? No. It's just another useless experience. And that's really what this has become, is just another useless experience. Now, I'm not going to retread over a lot of the things said by Analog and other content creators about this. There are 2 points that I would like to bring up. Firstly, and I do think this is really odd, and some channels have brought this up in part, but there's sort of a tail on this dog that hasn't been addressed. You have Hasbro putting out a number of retro re-releases right now. You have them doing the Empire Strikes Back Kenner figures from 1980. You have them doing the 1986 Real Ghostbusters figures from Kenner. You have them doing the G1 re-releases of select Transformers using the original Takara G1 Generation 1 Diaclone molds. And then you have G.I. Joe's retro wave, where everybody was anticipating an O-ring construction series of figures on retro card backs. We did get the retro card backs, but we received modern action figures that had already been released a few years ago with the Toys R Us run of toys, when Toys R Us was exclusively distributing G.I. Joe there for a while. Toward the very end, the last gasp, these figures are from those packages. And I was sitting there thinking about it, and I'm like, wait a second. Hasbro can recreate Kenner products almost perfectly now. The Empire Strikes Back Retro Collection was a huge improvement on the Star Wars one from last year. The Kenner Real Ghostbusters are almost perfect. I mean, they really are. I have nothing bad to say about them. The only reason I didn't pick them up is because I already own my childhood originals and they are in great shape. I was one of the fortunate ones. So I don't see any need to go get them. But for somebody that doesn't have them, they look great. I mean, they're really, really good. Now, the Transformers, aside from Optimus not coming with his trailer and the seemingly high price points, they seem pretty spot on to the original G1 Transformer toys. There doesn't seem to be a real issue. So why is it that Hasbro can create or recreate? Why can Hasbro recreate perfectly toys from other companies? Or in this case with Takara, they're just asking them for those Transformers and they're sending them to them. They're importing them from overseas. But they can't recreate their own product. You can recreate toys from companies that you acquired and properties that you acquired and toys that you licensed. But you can't recreate your own stuff? That blows me away one. I mean, that's a big question mark. Like, why can you guys not redo your own stuff? What happened behind the scenes that made that impossible? The second thing that doesn't compute with me. All right, let's get past the fact that these aren't truly retro figures. They call it the retro wave, but it's really just the retro card backs. All right, you can't do retro figures anymore. For whatever reason, you're going to call it the retro wave regardless, and we just have to live with that. Fine. Why'd you choose the figures you chose? Because they aren't retro either. You've done retro Modern Joes from the 25th anniversary line and those subsequent years. And you've done multiple versions of Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow in that time. And that's really, not to detour too much from my point, but that's really the biggest letdown of this line, is that not only did they do a layup with, the the characters that they chose, which was Snake Eyes, Storm Shadow, and then Baroness, which is like, you'd think it would have been Cobra Commander or somebody like that. Nope, Baroness. What? But then on top of that, you give us figures that are completely not even resembling their retro versions at all. 3 figures, 2 vehicles, 2 random vehicles. Like the Cobra Hiss, not so random, but the Awe-Striker, kind of random. I mean, Crankcase and the Awe-Striker, not Clutch and the Vamp against the Hiss. Couldn't do that out of the gate. Nope. Oh, all right. That don't make no sense. This whole line doesn't make any sense. 3 figures, not 6, like the Star Wars Retro Collection? No? Like, every decision about this line feels like a soccer mom was in charge. A corporate soccer mom was in charge of the Hasbro G.I. Joe Retro Wave. I mean, you can't connect the dots on this. So if you look at the figures that they did make, Storm Shadow, Snake Eyes, Baroness, like, I would have done 6 figures. And I would have made them essential. I would have done sort of like what they're doing with the He-Man Origins line or the Star Wars Retro Collection. I would have done 3 heroes, 3 villains. I would have done Snake Eyes, Scarlet, and Stalker. Those would be the 3 original Retro Collection G.I. Joes. And then for the 3 villains, it would have been Cobra Commander, Baroness, and Destro. That's what I would have done, because that would have reflected the original era, the first few years of G.I. Joe. You know, that would have been core. And then I would have gotten the Vamp in there with Clutch and then the Hiss Tank if they could only do the 2 vehicles. I would have done those 2 pair-ups. This is just scattershot. Like, it's all over the place. And these 3 figures couldn't be more cliche. Now, here's the thing that drives me nuts, though, in addition to everything else already driving me nuts. You have so many different re-releases of the modern versions of the classic characters since 2007, I think it was. And yet you guys choose figures for 2 out of 3 that don't look anything like the cardback art. And this is the last big sticking point that I have with the Retro Collection. They slapped the old artwork on there, and then they made no effort at all to match the figures up with the card art, with the exception of Baroness. Now, I don't think Baroness should have come out before Cobra Commander in any stretch. In any scenario, Cobra Commander should have been first out of the gate. But that Baroness, which is from the Toys R Us exclusive lines, just with her silver accents sort of erased, she's all right. They try to give added value to the figure by, and all 3 of these figures, by just throwing in like this vomitorium of random weapons, which most of the weapons don't even really relate to these characters figure to figure. It's really disorienting, and you just can see Hasbro, you know, in their offices just kind of twisting in the wind. I mean, it's... All right, so now we're looking at Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow. Let's take Snake Eyes. Snake Eyes is depicted in the card art as his original Commando version. That makes sense. That's the one that should come out first for a retro wave. But which modern Snake Eyes do they pick? They pick a 2-pack Snake Eyes from the Toys R Us era who had interchangeable heads, I might add. And they put the wrong head on him, and then they also give you the sword and then a bevy of other random weapons. They give you the Uzi, they give you the version 2 sword, and then all these other random crap weapons. They had so many more choices, better choices, that they already had in their inventory, and they ignored them. So first you got to pick, do you want to do Snake Eyes V1 or Snake Eyes V2? You can't walk that balance beam with this weird hybrid version of Snake Eyes. It's not going to work when the card art is very specific. In the Toys R Us packaging, it was just generic packaging with him and Storm Shadow. So it was, I guess, fine. But in this case, you've got a depiction that is specific on the card art, and you got to go with it. So if we do V1, there was a much better V1 Snake Eyes, who I have right here. that they could have gone with for V1 Snake Eyes if they couldn't do an actual O-ring action figure. And then if they wanted to do a V2 Snake Eyes, they also failed because, one, he doesn't have the right uniform on below his head. He doesn't come with timber. He doesn't come with the right accessories. It's just, again, it's another grab bag of guns and knives. There was a much better Snake Eyes that came out in the modern line. And he came with Timber the Wolf. They could have used that one. And then, of course, if you use the V2 Snake Eyes, you really need to put on the V2 artwork for the card back. That's mandatory. You can't just put artwork up there and then just put whatever figure in there you want. I mean, if you're going to do that, you might as well just put Firefly in there or Breaker, for God's sakes. I mean, if it really, it just shows how much it doesn't matter to Hasbro anymore. They just do whatever. They'll buy it, whatever. Storm Shadow. Supposed to be retro Storm Shadow. Retro Wave. His card art is the same. He's the same dude with the cross swords, and he's got, the short sleeves on his ninja outfit with the wristbands. Storm Shadow, the one we remember. The figure inside? He looks like the dude from the movie. I mean, he's like Diaper Man. He's got long sleeves with, the full gloves and the big sash around him with the diaper waist and the hood with the thing. I mean, he doesn't look anything like retro Storm Shadow. He looks like frickin' movie Storm Shadow. He came out of the Toys R Us 2-pack. But the card art doesn't look anything like him. And it's certainly not retro. They've had a retro Storm Shadow for years in the modern line. For years. And you can actually pull other weapons from different releases of that to create a modern version of the retro Storm Shadow. If you take that one and the Hall of Heroes one and you mix and match their weapons a little bit, you can get an ultimate retro Storm Shadow with the bow and the nunchucks and the swords. There he is, and he's even got the little sleeves. It's the Hall of Heroes one, I think, had like bare shoulders or something like that. The original one, they had the retro style short sleeves. And there he is with all of the proper weapons. This isn't rocket science. Like, I don't understand. I don't understand the problem. And here's the Baroness that they're bringing out, just with no silver accents on it. But otherwise, that was the best Baroness they ever made in the modern line. I don't understand this. This whole thing with Hasbro and their choices on this, it really just seems like a half-hearted layup. And the saddest part is that even if you couldn't give us the retro style O-ring figures, you chose the worst modern figures you could put in there. You just basically chose the most recent stuff. You didn't even go back into your product history and grab the molds for the other things that you've already made. You just said, well, what did we bring out last time? What was the last version of this we brought out? Just do that again. And then you didn't even bother to give Snake Eyes the right head. Anybody who buys this line you guys are burning your money. If you didn't get the Baroness the first time around at the Toys R Us release, then yeah, maybe the Baroness would be worth it. As far as the vehicles, they're probably going to be overpriced. From everything I heard, everything's already sold out and scalpers are already hawking them all on eBay. So the vehicle prices are already equal to, if not exceeding, vintage prices. And, you could get a release of the Ostriker from the 25th anniversary line for a lot less. Same with the Hiss, I'm sure. This whole line is just not worth it. And I will be ignoring it. I'm not going to be buying it. Why would I do that? If you want G.I. Joes today, I've said it in previous videos. If you want the G.I. Joe experience buying action figures, just buy Marauder Task Force. Just go to Marauders and buy those because they are the best G.I. Joe spirited figures out there. And you can build your own characters. You can build, you know, the characters as close to the Joes and get them really close if you want to. They offer everything you could possibly want to put together your ultimate set of Joes. And they don't compromise, and they don't cut corners, and they don't overcharge, and they don't, you know, force you to run from store to store or to a Walmart exclusive, not finding them. They don't force you to pay for them, you know, on eBay through scalpers. You can recreate your G.I. Joe experience with Marauders. Or you can build all the G.I. Joes you always dreamed of that were never made, that you had in your mind's eye. Fans are doing the best work. Hasbro's doing crap with the G.I. Joe line. Like I said, I'll be objective, you know, when Hasbro does something good. Their real Ghostbusters re-released figures, they seem pretty good. Their retro Empire Strikes Back figures were not terrible. Okay? This retro line, what an insult. What a disaster. If I was working at Hasbro and I had, you know, whimpered out that line, I'd be ashamed. I really would. So, yeah, do what you want, but I'm not gonna buy them. I'm just gonna be content with my vintage stuff and the modern figures that I bought over the last few years. Hasbro's not offering you anything new, and they're not even offering you a retro card back with a matching retro figure. They didn't even go to the extent to do that. The whole line is half-hearted, and they want you, the customer, to buy it. So they're not giving you their A game. So why should you give them your money?
It's hard not to follow the crowd, but sometimes that path is just a dead end.
Because I know what's best for me.
And knowing is half the battle.
G.I. Joe!
Thanks for watching this, everybody. If you want to learn more about the Marauders Task Force action figures, you can watch my review here. And if you just want to know more about G.I. Joe toys, you can watch our G.I. Joe playlist here. And now I guess I'm going to figure out what to do with the rest of my day.